Yep.
Hey guys, Kris Jones, episode 79 of Ask Me Anything. So recently, as I've mentioned to you guys, if you've been watching my series, I had an onslaught of public speaking presentations across October and early November of this year. And having delivered literally several hundred presentations across the course of my career, and having gotten invited back most of the time, pretty much all the time whenever I give a presentation, I probably have some advice to share with you about creating and delivering the ultimate presentation. So I figured I would share some tips with you guys. So, just a couple of things. I'm not the best public speaker in the world by any stretch. I do have a lot of experience, and it's important to me that I learn from others that I admire that are good public speakers, and I take tips and strategies from them. There are definitely some speakers out there that I see and I'm like, wow, are they skilled? But the thing about it is like nerves and strategies for really connecting with your audience. These are skills that you could develop. You aren't necessarily born with them, and as you speak and as you present over time, you could get better. But knowing these things and being able to incorporate them into your presentation could make you a better speaker if tomorrow is going to be your first presentation. So here is a couple of ideas. First, with any presentation, you want to keep it simple, stupid. The subject material needs to be able to catch your entire audience. Remember, unless you're speaking to an audience of one, you need to communicate your content in a way that everyone could understand it, relate to it, and engage with it. That's not an easy thing to do, but when you are putting your presentation together, remember this. You know much more about the material than anyone that you're likely presenting it to. So you need to kind of keep it simple, stupid. I don't want to say dumb it down, but you certainly have to communicate it in a way that's relatable to as many people in the room as possible. When you get out there on stage, this is sometimes the hardest thing for beginners. When you get out there on stage, you're probably going to be nervous. So I always recommend, and what I always do almost every time, is I'll start with a story or an icebreaker. A story, I usually do a situational story. So recently I spoke in Las Vegas at a conference, and literally when I jump in the Uber car from my hotel to the venue, I'm just looking around. I'm looking for situational storytelling that I could share as soon as I get up on stage. If you're in Vegas, it's always easy to use, hey, did you guys have a good time last night or whatever. But if there was an event the night before in town, hey, did you guys go to the Britney Spears concert? Or hey, did you guys go to the conference event last night? Those kind of things. The point is that by engaging with your audience, by relating to them right out of the gate, you really reduce your nerves, and you also set up, you grab their attention and you set up your confidence to soar throughout the presentation. By the way, I mentioned icebreakers. One of the other things I do, never done it in this video series, but I've done it in a lot of my public speaking presentations, is I will ask people literally to stand up in the room before I even start presenting my material. And I have them do the Tony Robbins clap, which what Tony does is to get everybody's energy up. He goes, ooh, and claps. And I've done that to rooms of 400, 500, 600 people. And I can tell you this much, at the end of that little exercise, that little icebreaker, people tend to sit up higher in their seats and tend to be ready for my material. Generally speaking, less slides, if you're going to use a PowerPoint presentation, is better than more slides, unless you're presenting complex material. And in that case, you may need to break the material down to keep it simple, stupid, and understandable. And in that case, you may have more slides. There are some public speakers that, which is another quick tip, that create presentations that are very visual. Presentations that use a majority visual style tend to be much longer. So my suggestion that less is more may not apply if the subject matter you're talking about is highly visual or you decide to use that strategy. For me, I tend to keep my presentations between 12 and 15 slides as a general rule. I've had presentations that have been over 20 or 30 slides, and quite frankly, I felt anxious about halfway through because I feared that I wouldn't get to all my content in the time allotted. So think that through. Less is typically more. When starting out your presentation, after the icebreaker, try to capture their attention with what I call wow information, which is typically like industry data or statistics. And I wrote something down here just as an example. Like if I was presenting on digital marketing and my audience was potential clients, right? I would say something like, digital marketing spend will increase to $120 billion by 2021. Investment in things like paid search, display advertising, social media advertising, online video advertising, and email marketing will pace to 46% of all advertising in 5 years. Is your digital media budget in line with this trend, or are you falling behind the competition? Hey, my name's Kris Jones, and today I'm going to. So you see how I grabbed their attention there by using sort of wow statistics? It's a real easy thing for you to do. It's also a confidence builder if you could find some really good data to share right out of the gate. When you share data, people by default, for whatever the reason, immediately assume you're an expert. And by the way, when you're speaking in front of people, you need to be an expert and you want to come across as one. So it's a really good little tip for you to do that. I mentioned earlier that some people just have a visual style. I recently read that 85% of information that comes to us on a daily basis comes in visually, right? 20% of written content is remembered. Roughly 30% of visual content is remembered. But when you do both visual and written, you're up to 50% of recall. So it just improves the likelihood that your audience is going to remember the information that you're sharing. Also, visuals, things like graphs, charts, using people, family. I love using my family pictures. I feel like people in the audience perk up if they were falling asleep. Using graphics or pictures with color in them. Again, guys, this is just sort of a way of keeping your audience engaged and giving them an opportunity to better relate to your material and remember it. When you're putting your presentation together, take very, very serious the title of the presentation and the headlines on each of your slides. This is an opportunity to keep your audience engaged. You should not have the same headline on each slide. Use things that are going to keep their attention. Maybe drop some statistics or use some startling words to keep them interested. Whenever possible, storytell. Storytelling does tend to be more of an innate skill. Some people are really, really good at it. Comedians, for instance, I am no comedian, but comedians, you hear them, they know how to deliver the punchline, they know how to do that. If you're a good storyteller, you should incorporate it as much as possible into your presentations, particularly to hit home on key things that you want them to remember. I can't state this enough. You need to know your material cold. You need to be the expert. There have been times, I've done it so many times, I will go 99.8% of the time, I go into a presentation with a command of the material where I am super confident. But for that 0.02%, I will tell you, you don't want to be that person. It's very uncomfortable. You need to know the material cold. And that takes practice and rehearsing. Be confident. Why? Number one, it'll mitigate your nerves, but there's other reasons. Because your confidence level determines your body language and the tone of your voice. It's very different if I sat here right here and just kind of was like, you know, guys, versus, hey, listen, guys, let's go on to the next topic. So again, body language and tone of voice is important. And then finally, you need to focus on your audience, not yourself. You know, there are some common pitfalls in public speaking that I've learned both through experience and I've seen other people do, and I literally took a note and said, I will never do that. I will share those with you in a future AMA. But remember, public speaking is really about serving your audience. It's about educating them. It's about taking advantage of that platform to allow them to leave with more knowledge than they came with. Hope you guys found these tips useful. Feel free to post in the comments or to reach out to me personally if you're preparing for a presentation. You want me to either take a look at it or give you some feedback on some tips on how to make it kick-ass. I'll see you guys in my next episode. Peace.